not kept silent, that this is not pushed down. Please take the time to read it, particularly if you look on page 5 at the bottom, you'll see some questions that we have that are very important as well. There's also a legal opinion on page 2. It is our minority opinion that we can meet this state mandate, addressing the affordable housing needs of the state mandate without high-density multi-unit construction. The other thing I want to comment on is Rotary housing. I'm a strong supporter of Rotary housing. I will say that the 2 Rotary housing, the projects that were done, remember that those were done without Sausalito having a certified housing element, so that those Rotary projects were done by Rotary going into the neighborhood, collaborating with neighbors. There was no entitlement, for Rotary. They worked with the neighborhood and created something that was low impact and low density and worked with the scale of the neighborhood. That's different from what we're talking about here with this housing element. Housing element, we are constricted by something called by right for developers. And I get into that on page 5 here. So it's very important. I distinguish a difference between Rotary housing versus the constraints that the city of Sausalito is strapped with by what we identify as part of our housing element. We should go in as aggressively as possible with the most minimal impact to Sausalito within scale, and that is, in my opinion, what is presented here. And already my last comment is, there was a comment up here earlier about this being a second unit and liveaboard strategy. It is not. We already have 55 units that have already been built. So under no circumstances would we ever submit to the state something that was strictly second units and liveaboards, okay? We already have 55 units that are new construction that have already been built that we can take credit for. So it's already by default a mixed combination. Thank you.
Other comments? Yes, sir.
I want to ask you a question. If one of the sites that was discussed was actually selected, right? Who makes the decision about whether or not there's an affordable housing overlay applied to that particular site? And what voice do we as citizens have to do to oppose it?
Good question. The process for identifying and for establishing an affordable housing overlay zoning district, it goes through a public hearing process. So the first step in that is the housing element would identify which sites should receive or are prioritized for being overlain with a affordable housing overlay. And the next step would be there would be formal public hearings with notification to all the neighbors within 300 feet of the site, as well as our the city's state mandated notification process. And that would be, there'd be public hearings held at the Planning Commission when neighbors and interested parties can testify. Following the conclusion of public hearings, another set of public hearings takes place at the City Council level, and that's when public input is.
So I guess my question is, who makes the final decision?
At the end of the day, it's a City Council decision.
That they would make that would apply to affordable housing overlay district to a particular site that was selected?
Correct.
Thank you.
Next question. Yes.
My name is Susan Shade. I live in the north end of town, and I just have 2 comments. First of all, I think that underlaying most of the angst about affordable housing is change and those people coming into our town. And I think that change is inevitable and it's good. But living in the north end of town, I have to agree with a lot of people that I think we should use a Rotary style approach to getting buy-in from neighborhoods. And that this is not a NIMBY issue, this is not in my backyard issue. This is about a town trying to work together very collaboratively with the residents that have lived here for as long as we've lived here. and using some of the ideas that Michael had pointed out, where you put a house here, you put an apartment building there, instead of some of these ideas where you're just throwing things up that are obviously going to, pardon my language, piss everybody off. In particular, in the Spring Street Valley area, which is an extraordinarily tight neighborhood. And people need to come to us. That's the way human beings are. People need to come to us and sit down with us and say, what do you think about that ridge having a development on it? I mean, I just think that we need to be open to new people coming in. I've got plenty of friends that would love to live in Sausalito but can't afford it. But on the other hand, watch out. Because if you don't collaborate with us and you have to be proactive. I know it's a democracy, but we're very lazy.
Thank you. In the back.
On the affordable housing side of it, with living boards and accessory units, would those have to be deed restricted to qualify for this, or is it just the original value of them in terms of their current rent, or you have to layer on deed restrictions on all of those units?
Our initial approach we'd be looking at demonstrating that the market rate rents for those demonstrate that those units are already rented or priced at affordable rates.
The housing element requirements with no deed restricted units. If there's something that requires we do have some deed restricted.
Well, our first choice would be to not have to introduce deed restrictions. However, if we cannot demonstrate that a particular unit will, that the market rate on a particular unit or category of units will be affordable, then we have to look at other options to ensure that they are affordable for the long term. Certainly if there's some kind of subsidy for a unit, then we need to have some type of restriction. We don't, in essence, what we want to make sure is the first person who buys that particular unit that has received some type of subsidy does not turn around and sell it 2 years later and have a large windfall. That would be contrary to the purposes of ensuring affordability for the community.
How does the housing, you may have said this at the beginning, does the housing element require a range of low, it requires the low up to moderate? You have to have some in each of those categories?
Correct, yes. The RENA allocation that was assigned by ABAG has set numbers for each of the 4 affordable housing categories. Chuck.
You can tell from that I'm getting a little aged. I've lived in town for about 35 years, and the reason I moved here is because I like the neighborhood. Now, with all due respect to what the staff has done, I think they've done an excellent job of fighting the state. No, I won't say that. They've done an excellent job of complying with the state, but it should not have been done. There was that article in the local paper about the Nevada hearing on this matter, tied it very succinctly, I think, when they said, the reason that I moved here because I like the community, and now the state is trying to change it from what it had. It should be local control. Now, let me go on with that. I moved into that area where I live, up near the firehouse, because I like the neighborhood. The neighborhood is very dispersed in a lot of respects. The lady that lives next door to me is Afro-American. She's lived there for 40 years, and I get along with her fine. The next house down the line, when Christmas time comes and everybody puts up their light, they put up a nice bright blue Mogan David. So there's integration there. The next house down is John and Laura Chang. Both of them were born in China. One of them in Hong Kong, which was British at the time, but in China, they run a very successful importing business from China now. And I get along with them fine. The next one down the street is a court reporter. You know, as good as you can get. On the other side, there's a guy that works for a big finance company in San Francisco. I even get along with him. What I'm saying is that local control is what we need, and then the Lateral Council had put it very succinctly when he said, that these new laws are gonna take away local control. We can convert, we change, amend the Constitution of the United States. We can sure change the Constitution of the state of California and get those guys in Sacramento that are mandating these things out of our hair and let it go back to this local community that was developed by local people that I liked when I moved into, and I'd like to keep it that way.
Next comment. Don.
Why is Marinship not discussed in this at all?
The task force, Marinship is identified as a